We put the camera on you. That what you said? Oh, I can turn it over there, girl. Can I turn this thing on?
The industrial, what you'll learn.
All right. All right. So we're gonna talk about the Industrial Revolution and the modern era. We're gonna identify medical contributions from the Industrial Revolution and the modern era. We're gonna recognize how the link between structure and function was important and describe how technology has improved medical treatment.
The industrial revolution.
All right, so Industrial Revolution, also known as the Age of Reason. Industrial Revolution, also known as the Age of Reason. All right, so Industrial Revolution, the Age of Reason, it began in the Renaissance, had a great effect on the subsequent century. So once the Renaissance came, this is when the Age of Reason. So remember we talked about previously that they thought medicine was related to supernatural things. They thought it was related to religion, and other things. I can't remember at the time, but so they've been going back and forth. All right, so human curiosity and experimentation led to the Industrial Revolution of the 1700s and 1800s. This time of huge advances in chemistry and physics provided medicine with many new tools and methods. So you had two important discoveries. You have Louis Pasteur and Joseph Lister. So Pasteur was a chemist that worked in a winery. So he wanted to determine what causes the wines to turn sour. So he used a microscope. He discovered that microorganisms were to blame. So then he developed a system of heating and sealing to destroy these dangerous microbes. So this procedure was known as pasteurization. So when y'all drink milk and stuff or eat dairy, it has to go through pasteurization to take out all the bad things so that y'all are able to eat or drink whatever it is. So that's what he discovered. Then you have Joseph Lister. He was a surgeon in the 1800s. So you got Pasteur and Lister. And he was frustrated by the infections his patients acquired after surgery. So with the help of Pasteur's research, Lister discovered that microorganisms, remember those are tiny little things that you can't see with the eye, were responsible for infection in people. So we talked about, microorganisms and all that stuff. We talked about infection control. So continuing his studies, he started to develop methods of medical asepsis. So what medical asepsis is cleaning procedures that kill microorganisms and help to eliminate infection. So write the definition of medical asepsis down. Medical asepsis is cleaning procedures that kill microorganisms and help to eliminate infection. So that is disinfecting. Remember we talked about, I forgot which era, it might have been the ancient era we talked about when the barbers were the barbers, they didn't trust the barber. They didn't trust the people that didn't have much money. The barbers were the ones that did their amputations and did their did the cataract surgeries and stuff. And remember, they didn't believe in disinfecting and stuff. So that's how people started getting infected. People started dying. And the average age, I think they said, was 40, which is fairly young. So medical asepsis is how people in the hospital, healthcare facilities prevent people from getting infected because they disinfect things or they sterilize it. They use aseptic techniques. They might use like sterile gloves, sterile instruments. They do all these things to prevent infection. Everybody still writing?
You coming in?
Huh?
You coming in?
Oh, how much follow y'all need to send me? It's at 150, at 175 now. Alrighty.
Structure and function.
Alright, so by the end of the Industrial Revolution, connections between the structure and function in an organism were finally known. So this medical breakthrough led to many more discoveries. In 1778, John Hunter inserted a feeding tube into a patient's stomach. Edward Jenner administered the first vaccination in 1796. So vaccination have been around since that time. William Beaumont fully described the digestive system in 1822. Anesthetics such as ether and chloroform were used to put patients to sleep during surgery in the mid-1800s. So whenever you have any kind of surgical procedure and they have to put you to sleep, they use anesthesia. That's what they use to put you to sleep. It has been around since the mid-1800s. You have Elie Metchnikoff explain how white blood cells protect humans from diseases in the early 1900s. So, your white blood cells are a part of your immune system. When it senses that you have an infection, your white blood cells will like go up because it's trying to fight off that infection. And because of that, when people that have diseases that deal with the immune system, like HIV or AIDS, or people that get chemo, their immune system is compromised, so their white blood cells don't work the way they should. So that's why it's easy for them to get infections and stuff. That's why you got to be careful around those types of people. Like common cold for us will be just a cold, but common cold for people that have compromised immune system, it could take them out. That's why a lot of people are dying from COVID, because some people can't fight it off. Like we might can, us, younger, I'm not younger as y'all, but younger people that are relatively healthy. You got somebody that got underlying heart issues, kidney issues, lung issues. They can't fight it off. It's just too much for their body. So, I live in Auburn, so I'm closer, close to Georgia, like Columbus, and then they just had two policemen. Well, one of them was retired. I don't know how old he was. I think he was like 68. And the other one, he was younger. Probably he might have been 50. But they both just died from COVID, like within a couple of days from each other. They both been in the hospital for a while fighting. But it was on the news. All right, what major medical breakthrough was made during the Industrial Revolution? Connection between structure and function is realized. So that came about in the Industrial Revolution. What did Joseph Lister identify as the cause of infection in people? Microorganisms. All right. So little things like pathogens are what caused. That's what he came up with. That's what we think today. Well, most people think.
The modern era.
All right. So The modern era began in the early 1900s. The cause of infections and diseases was no longer a mystery. Scientists quickly developed treatments for many illnesses. In 1928, a major milestone was reached when, by accident, Sir Alexander Fleming discovered penicillin. You know, that's the antibiotic. Antibiotics are used to treat bacteria. They don't do anything for viruses. So a lot of people out here talk about, you know, if they got a mild case of COVID, they'll say, well, the doctor didn't give me anything. Well, it's not really nothing they can give you because it's a virus. It has to run its course. So you can take medicine for the symptoms like the headaches, the body aches.
It's still not gonna work.
It don't. It's just for the symptoms, to make the symptoms feel better. But if you just have to, that's why they tell y'all to quarantine, or you have to quarantine or whatever, because it has to run like a cold. Even though you might take cold medicine, that's not curing the cold. It's just taking away your symptoms because it's a virus. So, and then some people don't even have symptoms with COVID, so they're just spreading it around. All right. Wilhelm von Röntgen also contributed to medical progress by creating a tool that changed medical procedures forever. In the early 1900s, he developed the X-ray machine. This allowed physicians for the first time to diagnose illness and fractures without using invasive surgery. So before then, if you broke something, they're just gonna have to open you up because there's no way to see it. So if you broke a bone, they had to cut you open, and then they don't even know if it's broken really, because sometimes sprains can be worse than a break. So they would just have to open you up and see. So now he developed the X-ray machine, and you can have X-rays. Like, this is the chest of a human being. So you have your lungs, these are your ribs, this is your clavicle or your collarbone. You can see the vertebrae, like in the back, you can see those. Your heart. So this, if you're looking at it, this is your left side. So this is the left. So your heart sits right here. That's why it doesn't, like, this lung goes like this. Heart has this little indentation. This lung has this indentation because your heart sits here. So that's why you'll learn that when we talk about the respiratory system. The right lung has 3 lobes. The left lung only has 2 because the heart sits right there. What a third lobe would be.
Do we need to write anything down?
No, not for this one. I don't think so, no.
Technological advancements.
All right, so the 20th century was filled with technological advances. The new technology produced rapid growth in the medical world. You have Francis Crick and James Watson. They identified the structure and function of DNA. And y'all have probably heard about this in like biology or something. Organs like kidneys and the heart were transplanted successfully from one body into another. That's when they started doing organ transplants. And you can transplant lots of things like kidneys and heart, like they say. You can transplant your lung, you can transplant eyes, a lot of stuff you can transplant. And then you have in vitro fertilization, allow infertile couples to have children. So when you hear people say IVF, that's what they're talking about, in vitro fertilization. And then childhood vaccinations completely eliminated many viral diseases. So like a lot of stuff like measles, mumps, rubella, people don't get that anymore, but you take, as a kid, you take that MMR vaccine. That is what it's for, measles, mumps, and rubella. That's what that vaccine is for. So stuff like that. Like when I was little, I had chickenpox, but it's not really a thing anymore. So they have vaccines that help eliminate some diseases. Sometimes it doesn't completely eliminate a disease, like as we can see with COVID, because you can still get the virus even though you're vaccinated, but it lessens the symptoms and stuff. It's not as bad as if you don't have it. Well, that's what the science is saying. I know my husband had COVID beginning of August. Him and my 9-year-old daughter, he's vaccinated. His wasn't. He just had like a headache, a cough. His cough sounded horrible, but headache, a cough. He was tired, but it was no worse than I think when he got the shot, and we was tired. But my 9-year-old, she's 9, so she bounced back quickly.
Health insurance.
All right, as medical treatments and procedures became more advanced, healthcare delivery became more structured and organized. Health insurance plans were developed in the 1920s to help cover the cost of healthcare. The U.S. government developed Medicare and Medicaid to help elderly people and low-income families pay for healthcare. So that's what you have: Medicare, Medicaid. Medicare is more for older people. Medicaid, you could be younger. It's low-income, elderly, disabled. Hospitals were renovated and organized into specialized units. So you got like emergency rooms, ICUs, pediatric units. So they started putting things together. Like now you can go to a hospital, they have a pediatric floor, they have a cardiovascular ICU. They start like kind of section off. I know Baptist South, they used to have a pediatric floor, but they don't. Cause we used to, from our club, we used to make like Valentine's for the kids, but they don't have a dedicated floor anymore. And then you have private clinics were also open to help care for certain illnesses. So like you can go to like an urgent care, so you don't have to go to the emergency room, because the wait times in the emergency room are like out of this world at the moment. Because of so many people going in for COVID. They don't have beds. The wait time is crazy. It's gonna be crazy. It's a mess right now. 20th century was filled with technological advances. True. The closer we get, like the more time has passed, the more technology is gonna come out. So.
The future. The future of medicine.
All right, so the future of medicine is full of promise. Discoveries are made almost every day. Medical innovation should be explored with great caution. However, healthcare workers must stay open-minded and flexible to adapt to new ideas. So an important approach to problem solving and medical research is the application of the scientific method. I'm sure y'all have heard of the scientific method before. It has 7 steps. So you have your observation or question. So that's your topic. You have your research, you learn about the topic. Your hypothesis, that's your educated guess or what you think is going to happen. Experiment, you're going to test out your hypothesis. Collect data, you're going to record the experimental data. Analysis, you're going to study the data. Conclusion, you're going to compare the hypothesis with the results. So this is the steps to the scientific method.
You didn't write that down?
No. All right. So you got modern era, Renaissance, the Middle Ages, and ancient times. What do y'all think goes where? Industrial Revolution up there.
Ancient times, illness linked to supernatural light. Middle Ages, Renaissance replaces rule.
Middle Ages, Renaissance, what?
Reason replaces religion and superstition. Modern era technology advancement and industry. And industrial revolution.
All right. Yep. So remember, we started with illness was linked to supernatural things. Then, reason replaces religion and superstition. So they thought that religion had something to do with being sick. Then connection between structure and function. They start realizing more things, and then you have your advances in the modern era. What important approach should be applied in moving forward with medical research? Scientific method.
Lesson summary.
All right.
In this